Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling something we literally all notice, but honestly, rarely actually understand. We're diving deep into the undeniable biology and the incredibly complex social realities behind human stature. So, we're going to unpack the hard science of how we grow, what you can actually change, and why, frankly, this topic takes up so much space in our collective minds.
So, let's just address the elephant in the room right off the bat. From those late-night how to get taller Google searches to dating app profiles demanding someone over 6 feet, height is just brutally visible, isn't it? It acts as this perceived shortcut to respect, to attractiveness and authority. I mean, you can't just hide it with perfect lighting. In a crowded room, your height is basically your silent introduction before you even speak a single word.
To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break down the entire architecture of height. We'll be covering 1. The psychology of height, 2. The biology of growth, 3. Maximizing your height potential, 4. Extreme measures and interventions, 5. The social height premium, and finally, 6. Presence beyond centimeters.
All right, Section 1. The psychology of height, more than just biology. Now, when we start breaking down why height triggers such deep insecurities in our culture, we find a seriously complex mix of factors at play. Look, you can't easily swap out your genetics, but it's absolutely crucial to realize that height isn't just one thing. It's an entire combination. It's biology, sure, your bones and hormones. It's your environment, meaning your nutrition and sleep, but, it's also optics. It's how your posture and your styling project your size to the world. And it's evolutionary psychology, which basically wires human brains to instantly interpret physical size as status.
Moving on to Section 2, the biology of growth, the machinery, and timelines.
So, how does the body actually build vertical height? Your height is primarily determined by the length of your long bones. Think the femur in your thigh or the tibia in your shin. During childhood and adolescence, these bones actually elongate through these highly specialized zones called epiphyseal plates, or more commonly, growth plates. Picture them as these active cartilage zones that expand, stack up new cells, and then eventually ossify, meaning they turn into solid, hard bone. And this whole incredible process? It's driven by a highly specific hormonal orchestra. There's a really common myth out there that just having more human growth hormone automatically equals getting taller. But honestly, it's much more like a construction site. Growth hormone is just the construction manager. It's the one sending out the signals. But IGF-1, insulin like growth factor 1, those are the actual builders down at the growth plates doing all the heavy lifting. And here's the kicker. If those builders don't have the right materials from your diet, or if the manager doesn't even show up because your sleep schedule is completely racked, well, the construction stalls.
But guys, here is the brutal biological reality of this situation. There is a hard, non-negotiable deadline. During puberty, rising sex hormones, especially estrogen, and that goes for all sexes by the way, actually accelerate bone maturation. And eventually, this causes those growth plates to completely fuse shut. Biologically speaking, females often experience this fusion around age 14 to 16, and males usually between 16 and 18, with 21 being the maximum typical fusion age. And once those plates fuse, that's it. You literally cannot naturally make your long bones any longer. The biological machinery to do it is just gone.
Which brings us to Section 3, maximizing your height potential, science-backed optimization. So if that biological window does eventually close, what can we actually do while it's still open? Well, remember, bones aren't just dead calcium sticks. They are active, living tissue. They need a constant, super high-quality supply of building materials to hit your genetic potential. We are talking protein, to give you that amino acid scaffolding. Calcium, absolutely crucial for bone mineralization and strength. Vitamin D3, so your body can actually absorb that calcium. Zinc, to support cellular division. And crucially, you just need calories. Chronic undereating or doing extreme diets during adolescence, that's a major risk factor that can drastically slow down your growth.
And honestly, this next point is absolutely vital. Sleep is arguably the single most underestimated growth supplement on the planet. I mean it. One of the absolute biggest pulses of growth hormone secretion happens during deep sleep, specifically early in the night. But to get that benefit, you've got to have a consistent schedule, and you have to minimize bright light late at night. Because look, you can eat perfectly, but if you don't sleep, you're missing the prime window for tissue repair and metabolic regulation.
Now, you might be wondering, what if my plates have already fused? Can I still gain height? Well, yes, actually, but it's visible height.
By fixing collapsed posture, things like a forward head posture or rounded shoulders, through targeted physical therapy style strengthening for your upper back and core, plus mobility work for thoracic extension and tight hip flexors, a lot of people can literally reveal 1 to 2 inches of hidden height. You can also use habit cues for desk ergonomics and keeping your fun level, or do spinal decompression like traction stretches. Now, it's not long bone growth, obviously, but it completely changes your physical alignment and exactly how tall you appear to the rest of the world.
All right, Section 4, Extreme Measures and Interventions, the Brutal Reality.
So, what happens when fixing posture just isn't enough, and someone feels compelled to turn to extreme medical interventions? Well, the reality is, if your growth plates are fused, the only possible way to truly increase your skeletal height is through limb lengthening surgery. This relies on a process called distraction osteogenesis, and the steps are intense. First, an osteotomy, where a surgeon literally cuts the femur or tibia. Then, fixation, stabilizing the bone with an internal nail or an external device. Next is a brief latency wait for early healing. Then the distraction phase, where the bone is slowly pulled apart by about 1 millimeter a day. Finally, consolidation, where the new bone hardens over months. It is a brutal, incredibly expensive medical event that requires intense physical therapy. It is absolutely not a casual lifestyle hack. We also see a lot of this online culture pushing synthetic human growth hormone as some sort of cosmetic tool. Now, taking HGH is undeniably life-changing when it's treating children with actual diagnosed medical deficiencies. But misusing it cosmetically after your plates have fused, it's completely pointless for height. It literally cannot lengthen your bones at that stage, and it brings on serious risks like insulin resistance, joint pain, and other major metabolic issues. Treating a real medical deficiency is just not the same thing as trying to artificially enhance beyond healthy biology.
Moving to Section 5, the Social Height Premium, Evolution and Bias.
To truly understand height dysmorphia and why people would even consider those extreme lengths, we have to hold up a mirror to society. Why does the world actually treat tall people differently? Well, it really comes down to the halo effect. It's a cognitive bias where one visible trait, like physical size, spills over into unrelated assumptions of competence, leadership, or confidence. Because of our evolutionary psychology, human brains often use size as this ancient, hardwired shortcut for strength and dominance. These are just perceptions, right? They're not guarantees of reality, but they absolutely create a height premium that shapes real-world outcomes in hiring, income, and leadership perception.
And honestly, nowhere is this bias more unnaturally amplified than on modern dating apps. The height filter literally reduces complex humans to numerical data points. It encourages these brutal visual snap judgments, pushes competitive comparisons, and massively amplifies average evolutionary preferences for things like protection capability or status. But here is the crucial thing you have to remember. These are just statistical averages on a digital screen. When you get into the real world, interactions operate on completely different rules, driven by warmth, humor, and shared values.
Now, let's zoom out and look at the objective pros and cons of living in these bodies. Yes, being tall absolutely grants massive first impression authority and visibility, but it comes with some severe biological trade-offs. Taller frames deal with heavy joint stress, especially in the knees and lower back. Plus, there's this constant ergonomic mismatch because the world is built for average sizes. Seriously, watch a tall person try to fold themselves into a standard airplane seat. It's rough. And we can't ignore the social burden. Tall people are often typecast and constantly expected to be dominant or strong.
Conversely, having a shorter or average stature offers superior mechanical efficiency and way less joint load. You just fit into the everyday environment so much better. But on the flip side, shorter stature undeniably faces the social stigma and biases of heightism. There's the chronic social friction of being underestimated in first impressions and biases in how leadership is perceived. So it really is this complex balance between physical efficiency and social friction.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Presence Beyond Centimeters, the Paradigm Shift. This right here is the most important part of this entire explainer, because if we can't change our fused bones, how do we shift our mindset away from genetics we literally can't control? It gets to the core trap of height dysmorphia. When people obsess over height, what they're usually actually chasing is respect, safety, and confidence. But true confidence is not a measurement, it's a behavioral signal. Height might be the excuse people fall back on, but the benefits they really want come from presence and competence.
The reality is, you can completely change the way the world reacts to you by mastering levers that actually outperform raw height. Think about it. Posture immediately reads as certainty.
Solid eye contact and a controlled voice pace, those are massive authority cues. Things like clothing fit, having clean lines and proportions, or physical training to improve your overall silhouette, and sharp grooming to signal self-respect. These practical variables signal competence, health, and high status far more effectively to the human brain than an extra inch of bone ever could.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, if you're still growing, treat your body like the ultimate construction project. Prioritize that sleep, optimize your nutrition, and protect your health. But if your growth plates have already fused, the mission changes entirely. It is time to stop negotiating with your genetics. Yes, height might shape someone's first impression of you, but if you focus your energy on building your character and your physical presence, it will never, ever get the final vote. So here's the real question. Are you going to let a biological measurement dictate your worth, or are you going to step up, take control of the variables you can actually change, and build a presence that absolutely towers over the numbers?